Features 2024 gold medalist Kaylee Copper, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, Derica Hamby, and Rain Howard. They won the 3x3 bronze medal at the 2024 Paris Games. Leah Boston, who represented the USA in many junior and senior competitions.
USA Basketball has released its 12-player group for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament in San Juan. And the conversation starts with one simple question: who runs the offense? This roster is a deliberate mix. You've got Olympic and World Cup pedigree, and you've also got first-time senior team introductions. The tournament itself runs March 11th to 17th, and it's a 5-game sprint against Senegal, Puerto Rico, Italy, New Zealand, and Spain. The tension comes from how many legitimate organizers are on the same sheet. Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, and Paige Buchers can all initiate, all create, all change tempo. But there is still only one opening tip, one primary voice, one tone setter. Normally, Team USA leans toward international continuity. Gray and Plum have already done the Olympic cycle, and that matters when the floor is tighter and the whistle is different. But this is where it gets complicated. Clark isn't just a young guard with a green light. She has already been the center of the biggest audiences the league has seen in decades, including a 2.1 million viewer debut on ESPN platforms, a 2.25 million viewer Fever Sky game in 2024, and a 2.7 million viewer Fever Sky game on ABC in 2025. And the person who has to balance all of it is Sue Bird, a decision maker with deep UConn Huskies ties, selecting a roster where Buchers is one of the headline debuts. So the real stakes are not just who starts, it's which identity Team USA wants to establish in Puerto Rico and which point guard becomes the face of that choice. But the real subplot people keep circling back to is the Connecticut pipeline. Paige Buchers arrives with a story that already feels made for this stage. The ACL chapter is part of her resume, but so is what came after it. The rebuild, the return, the composure in big moments. That's why every time she gets a national team opportunity, the conversation isn't just about talent, it's about succession and who the program trusts when the lights get hot.
USA Basketball Women's National Team Managing Director Sue Bird selected the roster and will continue to evaluate players prior to selecting a team for the 2026 Women's World Cup, which takes place September 4th through the 13th. The USA will be...
Now layer in the decision maker. Sue Bird has final authority over this roster, and that authority matters because it turns fit into policy. Reuters reported Bird's role comes with roster and staff selection power for the cycle. And her ties to University of Connecticut are not a rumor. They are history, built under Gino Auriemma and carried forward for decades. That's where the optics kick in. Not because there's anything illegitimate about relationships, but because the alternative option in this exact moment is Caitlin Clark, the most gravitational force the sport has produced for modern audience attention. So any rotation decision can get interpreted as a message, even if it's simply basketball logic. And the calendar gives this story a perfect stage. The tournament runs March 11th to 17th in San Juan. The U.S. is already locked into the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup because Continental Cup champions receive automatic qualification. That lowers the immediate pressure, but it raises the political pressure.
Derica Hamby, Rain Howard, Kiki Arifin, Kelsey Plum, Angel Reese, Jackie Young. I guess Brianna Stewart is not going to play in the qualifying round. So, yeah, people are pointing out no Asia, no Fee, no Stewie, no Alyssa Thomas. Well, let's just keep it real.
Because these games become a public audition for future roles. ESPN noted Bird will keep evaluating players before selecting the World Cup team later in 2026. Then look at the staff, because staff tells you how many priorities are in the room. Kara Lawson leads the group, with assistants Nate Tibbetts, Natalie Nakase, and Stephanie White. So if one guard starts and another comes off the bench, it won't just be a lineup note. It becomes the first draft of a hierarchy. And once that draft is public, it has a way of sticking. Stephanie White is the staff member who knows Clark's game in the most practical way. She's coached against the coverage plans built to trap Clark. She's seen what happens when you let her play with tempo, and she understands that Clark's best value is often upstream of the box score. The problem is that a staff can recommend, but Sue Bird's role sits above the bench. Reuters described Bird as the managing director with roster and staff authority for this cycle, which means the final direction isn't just tactical, it's structural. Now look at the roster through the negative space. Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Alyssa Thomas. The names that typically define Team USA's nightly floor and ceiling are not here. That's not a scandal, it's a feature of the moment. These qualifiers are happening with qualification already in hand, so the program is using them as a lab rather than a rescue mission. FIBA's qualifying format gives automatic World Cup entry to certain continental champions, and the U.S. isn't walking into San Juan with a must-win panic. That absence changes everything. With the usual gravity removed, the minutes become a tryout for responsibility. Who can organize a game without star insulation? Who can handle the whistle, the spacing, the physicality, and still keep the offense coherent? And that's why the Clark-Reese angle matters more than people admit.
Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark dynamic on the court at the same time. That's always interesting. That's always going to be an interesting dynamic. Everything was fine there. They had a, if I remember right, Caitlin Clark had a pretty sick pass to Angel Reese during the that All-Star game, and it kind of went viral, to be honest. So, very interesting.
Seeing Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in the same uniform again is less about old narratives and more about fit. Clark thrives when a big can run lanes, punish switches, and finish in traffic. Reese thrives when the tempo creates extra possessions, and the guards actually feed the glass and the rim. If this staff leans into that pairing, it signals a modern identity. If it doesn't, it signals the opposite, a return to pecking order basketball. You can already hear the soft launch explanation forming. The idea being floated is a gradual handoff. Start Clark now, then transition to Paige Buchers later, once she's fully settled. It's a convenient storyline because it frames the decision as patient development instead of preference. But the logic gets shaky when you put it next to reality. Clark just took the full weight of an entire WNBA season as the most hunted perimeter player in the league and kept showing up. Meanwhile, Buchers' recent history includes a long ACL recovery, and no matter how brilliant she is, that context doesn't disappear because the calendar flips. So if the program chooses to prioritize the ease in framing, it's going to land as politics, not performance. And in this ecosystem, perception doesn't wait for a full sample. The first rotation becomes the story, the first closing lineup becomes the headline, and the explanations that come after often sound like cleanup rather than clarity. This is bigger than 1 week in Puerto Rico because it's effectively an on-court audition for Berlin. The 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup runs September 4th to 13th, 2026 in Berlin, and the United States will be chasing a 5th straight world title, which would also be their 12th overall if they finish the job. That's why the San Juan qualifiers matter even with qualification already secured. They are the first public look at roles, pairings, and pecking order that can carry forward. And in national team politics, first impressions stick. If Caitlin Clark controls games in March, it becomes harder to justify shrinking her workload later. If Paige Buchers gets the first crack and looks uneven, the conversation instantly turns into optics. And if the staff tries to split everything down the middle just to dodge the noise, they risk leaving Puerto Rico without a true identity or a dependable closing group. The international game also asks different questions than the WNBA. The three-point geometry is not identical, especially in the corners, which changes help angles and what open really means. Around the rim, the timing and definitions for goaltending and interference are written differently, and those details can swing possessions in tight games. And the physical standard can feel heavier because the game is built to keep flowing. which rewards guards who create advantages early and punish defenders before the contact fully arrives. That's why Clark's translation argument is so strong. Her range isn't tied to a single line. It stretches past the arc no matter the rulebook, and her passing reads are built on anticipation, not perfect spacing. Paige's game can absolutely thrive internationally too, but any player coming off a major knee timeline is usually the last one to feel 100% on burst, landing confidence, and finishing through bodies. So when you zoom out, the debate isn't who deserves it. It's whether basketball decisions are being made strictly on current readiness, or whether reputation, relationships, and future planning are shaping the present more than anyone wants to admit.
Go back. We got Paige Beckers. Breanna Stewart's not actually playing. We always talk about you got to be worried about the Connecticut bias because of the managing director, Sue Bird. And I think there was some feelings that Gino Auriemma made some comments that would lead you to believe that Paige...
White understands the part of Clark's game that doesn't fit neatly into a stat line. It's the way one guard can tilt an entire defense before the ball even crosses half court. Clark forces early pickups. She drags help a step too far. She turns safe coverages into uncomfortable choices because going under a screen becomes a shot, switching becomes a mismatch, and doubling becomes an open look somewhere else. That kind of gravity is an offensive system by itself, and it's the kind of thing a coach argues for behind closed doors when rotations get debated. But the structure matters. Assistants can push a case, and a head coach can have a preference. But this cycle has a clear decision-making layer above the bench. Sue Bird's resume is unimpeachable, and so is her command of the sport. 5 Olympic gold medals, 4 WNBA titles, and a career built on controlling pace and moments. Her knowledge is not the concern. The concern is something much more human and much harder to measure, whether long-standing relationships and institutional familiarity subtly shape evaluation when two candidates are close enough that fit becomes subjective. That's why this week is being watched as a proxy fight about more than a lineup. Clark represents disruption, not just because she's popular, but because she changed the scale of attention. She brought casual viewers into the ecosystem, helped turn regular season games into mainstream events, and gave women's basketball proof of concept that transcendent stars can move audience behavior. In that context, the question is not whether the program respects her talent. It's whether the system embraces the disruptive future on its own terms or tries to fold it back into the comfort of tradition. Angel Reese adds a second layer to the experiment, and it's a basketball layer, not a gossip layer. Reese changes possessions. She creates extra shots, extra fouls, extra chaos. Clark changes geometry. She stretches defenders into bad angles and speeds up decision-making. Put them together and you have a pairing that can do two things. International teams hate: punish zones with quick reads and punish physical games with second chances. If the staff treats Puerto Rico like a true lab, that combination should get real reps, not cameo minutes. If they get cautious about narrative management, they risk wasting the one thing qualifiers can give you that the WNBA season never does: a protected environment to test chemistry without fear of failure. And international opponents are not going to play this like a preseason scrimmage. These are national teams that have continuity, familiarity, and defensive discipline. They pack the paint, rotate on a string, and dare you to win with precision. When athleticism is neutralized by structure, the most valuable player becomes the one who can solve problems quickly, shoot over zones, hit tight windows, manipulate help, and stay calm when the contact is heavy and the spacing shrinks. That description is basically a scouting report for Clark. None of that means the veterans are optional. Kelsey Plum and Chelsea Gray bring a kind of experience you can't simulate. Plum has already navigated the international format, including a 3x3 medal in Paris. Gray has been inside the Olympic 5x5 environment and understands how FIBA possessions swing on a single decision. That knowledge matters, especially when games compress late. What makes this roster interesting is that it's built with a safety net. There's enough proven talent that experimenting doesn't carry the same risk it would in a true must-win window. If one starting look is clunky, you can pivot. If one pairing doesn't pop, you can recalibrate. That's exactly why a rigid commitment to hierarchy would feel like a missed opportunity. This is the kind of week where you try the modern lineup, not the safe lineup. The spotlight will follow Clark regardless of the official broadcast details, because her presence changes the audience ceiling. The WNBA numbers already demonstrated the pattern. When she plays, more people watch. That visibility benefits everyone wearing the jersey, which makes the handling of her role even more consequential. The team reports to Miami for training camp on March 7th to 8th before heading into competition in San Juan on March 11th to 17th. Those practices are where the real depth chart begins, because that's where combinations get tested and responsibilities get assigned. Kara Lawson will set the tone. The assistants will debate the details. Sue Bird will weigh all of it and make the call. And that call will signal a philosophy. If Clark is treated as a secondary option by default, it communicates that transformational impact can still be managed downward in favor of comfort. If she's empowered early, it communicates that the program is willing to evolve with the sport it represents.
No, you guys know I'm just not going to say that. So we'll have to find out how this happens, how this ends up looking, because I don't know about you. Sixth person of the year, sixth person off the bench, Caitlin Clark does not have a ring to it for me. It does.
Maybe Clark starts and this becomes a non-story. Maybe the rotations settle naturally and the best fit wins cleanly. But the fact that fans are bracing for a politics conversation tells you something real about the moment women's basketball is in. The sport has entered an era where audience gravity is a form of power, and power always tests institutions. Puerto Rico won't just show who is in shape or who runs the sets crisply. It will show whether Team USA is building around what the game is becoming or protecting what it used to be. Puerto Rico is not going to settle this with a press release. It's going to settle it with possessions. Because once the ball goes up, there's nowhere to hide. The rotations will tell you who they trust. The closing lineup will tell you who they believe in. And the point guard choices will tell you whether this program is chasing the next version of women's basketball or trying to keep the new era on a leash. If Caitlin Clark walks in and immediately tilts the floor, if the pace jumps, if the offense starts producing easy looks out of chaos, it becomes hard to justify putting that back in the box later. Stars like that don't just fit into systems, they become the system.
For this team, I mean, come on. Let's not try to get cute here. And I could see them trying to get cute by doing the whole, well, she's returning from injury and yada, yada, yada. No, Caitlin Clark, I did a video, I don't know how long ago. It's been a while since she come out and said, I'm 100% ready to go.
And when the international defenses load up, when the paint gets crowded and the scouting gets real, the guard who can shoot over a zone, throw lasers into tight windows, and speed up decision-making becomes the difference between a comfortable win and a grind. On the other side, if Paige Bueckers is handed the keys early and the results don't match the role, the conversation won't stay basketball. The optics will explode, the accusations will harden, and Team USA will spend the year answering questions it could have avoided by letting performance, not familiarity, set the order. That's why the staff can't half-step this. Splitting minutes to keep everybody calm sounds reasonable until you realize it can leave you with no real identity. Chemistry is built through repetition. Leadership is built through clarity. And when Berlin arrives in September 2026, no one will care how carefully they managed headlines in March. They'll care who can deliver gold when the margin tightens. So here's the simplest way to read it. Watch who starts, but pay even closer attention to who closes. Watch who gets the ball when the offense stalls. Watch who they trust when the opponent makes a run. That's where the truth is going to show itself. Because this isn't only about one tournament. It's about whether the gatekeepers of the sport are willing to let the new power structure exist in public. Clark represents the future, not because of hype, but because she already changed the demand for the product. If the program embraces that, it sends a message that the best impact wins, period. If it tries to manage that impact into a secondary role, it sends a different message, one that a lot of fans are already tired of hearing. Either way, the answer is coming fast. And when it does, you already know we're breaking it down play by play, lineup by lineup, and decision by decision. Tap in with Courtside Leaks and make sure you're subscribed, because the moment those rotations hit the floor in Puerto Rico, the real story starts. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.